Hey everyone, Warwick's here. So Blizzard said around the time that all of the Dragonflight announcements came out that they want to start getting these 10.0 trees out as soon as possible so that communities and things of that nature can start looking at them, giving feedback, and moving forward into, making updates very early on, even before alpha is released for Dragonflight. Well, they've kept their word. And today we're going to be looking at the Druid and Death Knight talent trees. We'll do two videos on this, Druid first, Death Knight second. And we're going to go over these, basically kind of go over everything. So we're here on Wildhead because they have all the best information on it. And basically they did make some corrections. Shred should be in the baseline abilities list, and Adaptive Swarm. So the Necrolord ability for Druids is going back to Resto trees. So it should be a square, which means that it's an active ability that you're choosing. So we're going to go over some of the blue posts here, and then we'll start looking at these on a more individual basis. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on here. So let's first start with this note here. The Dragonflight talent update is a great opportunity to let the Druid explore the flexibility inherent to the class. In many ways, the affinity concept from Legion through Shadowlands was anticipating something we were hoping to re-emphasize here: the ability to choose elements of various shapeshift form and roles. The affinity system didn't accomplish that, let's just be real. Anyways, that idea is now expanded into a class talent tree that has paths relating to every specialization, where deeper investments attain more of that spec's fundamental buttons. Various utility and crowd controller placed in optional locations off of every branch, as well as an essential area that is easy for every specialization to access. Our hope is that every spec can play in a somewhat traditional manner, where it fills out the complete path laid out for it in the core tree, and then picks up the choice of miscellaneous utility, or a more customized manner where it reaches deeper into the other spec's path. So basically what they're saying here, just my interpretation of it rather, is that you can go full Moonkin, for example, like they do in this, like you can see in this picture. You can just go full Moonkin, go all the way down here, maybe grab like a Heart of the Wild, Stampeding Roar type situation where you branch off, you come down this path, get Remove Curse, and then go down to Cenarian Ward, and then come down this path, so a little bit more on the Guardian side. Looks like they have Convoke listed in one of these trees over here, but that's neither here nor there. Basically what they're wanting is that you can make the choice to just stay on this path here, grab Cyclone, grab this is Beast Sleep, whatever it's called, and then you come down, you grab Typhoon, you can get an upgraded Sunfire, grab a talent tree here, grab Innervate, and then go from there. Or you can kind of do a path where you come here, you grab Rejuve, Swiftmend, Remove Curse, Cenarian Ward, along with getting all this stuff, and then you just come straight down basically to Cenarian Ward, and then you grab Soothe, Stampeding Roar, whatever this passive is. Maybe grab Stampeding Roar here, and then you can grab Heart of the Wild. And I'm sure it's going to have to be completely redone. So I think that's their idea that they have here. So let's look at, let's start with the baseline abilities. So no matter what, you are getting these through leveling and not through talent points. Wrath, no surprise. Moonfire, no surprise. Regrowth, no surprise. Revive, perfectly acceptable. Tangling Roots, minimal CC. Of course, you get Bear Form. Every Druid gets Bark Skin, so that tells me that, like, over here, that this is probably some form of upgrade to Bark Skin. Which I think is perfectly fine. Probably does really well for Guardian Druids and for Resto Druids. Right. Of course, Growl, Cat Form, Proud, Dash, Ferocious Bite. None of those surprise me. Aquatic Form, of course, Travel Form for Stag, Flight Form, Teleport Moonglade, no surprise. Mark of the Wild, oh wow, okay, so increases the target speed and critical strike chance by 3%, reduces their magic damage taken by 3 for 60 minutes. If the target is in your party and raid, all raid and party members will be effective. Okay, so the old Mark of the Wild, at least from what I remember back in like BC Wrath, that time frame, was that it was just basically like a 10% stat increase or something like that, or a 3% stat increase. So this actually gives speed, so classes like Paladin, Death Knight, Priest will really appreciate it. Crit strike chance, pretty much almost everything but tanks appreciate that, and magic damage taken reduction by 3%. That's also very good. So while most tanks, Brewmaster aside, don't really like crit, they will all accept magic damage taken as a debuff, or as like a buff that can get on themselves. So that's very, very good. And then of course Battle Res Rebirth. All right. let's look at the talent tree. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go over this, and then we'll kind of go back and look at the tree itself. So on the first row, you know what, let me do this. Let me come back to Wowhead. And what we'll do is we'll kind of pull this picture, and then nope, sorry about that. I'll cut this out. All right, there we go. Sorry about that. All right, so let's look at the tree. So we're kind of looking at these close up, and then we'll go from there. So Rake, no surprise. Frenzied Regeneration, Rejuvenation, Starfire. None of that should surprise us. You know, basically it's kind of iconic abilities for all of the Druid specializations. So Rake for Feral, Frenzied Regen for Druid, for Guardian, Rejuve for Resto, and Starfire for Balance. No surprise there. Row 2, so right here. So we get Thrash, good for both of these specs, so it makes sense to go there. Improved Bark Skin, its duration is increased by 2 to 4 seconds, so there's actually 2 ranks of this. So you can get there and you get 4 seconds extra on Bark Skin. I think the original duration is 12 seconds, so I think you're looking at 16 seconds of Bark Skin, so not bad at all. Swiftmend does what it does right now, so granted by default when selecting Restoration specialization. So what that means is that for Restoration Druid, you're automatically getting this. I'm assuming when you select Rejuve, you automatically get Swiftmend. That's my assumption. Obviously, still work in progress, still a lot to figure out. And then Star Surge does what it does now, granted by default when selecting Balance specialization, and of course, Thrash for Feral and Guardian. So what I'm assuming is that when you select these, like say you choose Feral at level 10, and you grab Rake, you'll automatically get Thrash when that time comes. Like, you will automatically grant this. You don't have to spend the point, it will just get it to you. I think that's the interpretation that I'm getting from it. We'll have to see, obviously. All right, row 3. So right here, so this is Rip, no surprise, main combo point spender for Feral. Swipe, again, no surprise. Damage varies by shapeshift form, so hopefully this means they make it really good for Guardian, okay for, like, pretty good for Feral, and then like ass for the other two, because I don't see a reason why they would come all this way to get it. All right. Improved Frenzied Regeneration. Frenzied Regeneration and Bark Skin increase all healing received by 20%. So Frenzied Regen, do they work it? Oh, heals you for 20% over 3 seconds. So during that 3 seconds, if you get healing at all, you will get healed, and then while Bark Skin is active, you're also going to get more healing. So very good for Guardian Druids. Probably pretty good for Resto. Kind of gives them a way to have like a defensive cooldown that I think is pretty good. So yeah, I could see both specializations. This makes sense going here. Let's see. Remove Corruption. Makes sense. Druid in particular is going to want that. This removes curses and poisons, so good to know. And then Moonkin form, no shock. Row 4, Maim, the combo point stun talent, mainly used for PvP, has some niche in PvE situations. Alright, this is an armor and physical damage thing. This has a name not final, NNF, so name not final. Basically, your armor and physical damage dealt increased by 246% at 3 points, so you can see it really connects down here to, like, you go down this way, you grab maybe this. Obviously, you have some ways down, we'll look at those, but this is obviously something as a Feral Druid you're going to want, because that's more physical damage dealt, which, you know, is good. Obviously for Bear, good as well. Iron Fur, so main active mitigation for Guardian Druid, makes sense to be there. This is an increase in healing and magic damage, so again, makes sense to be on this side of the tree, where the magic side, healing and magic damage is there. And then Hibernate, that was the name, Beastly, that's what I called it earlier, it is called Hibernate. Row 5, so right here, Feline Swiftness. This is the base movement speed that you get inherently with cat form. I'm wondering if this is something that is going to go on top of the inherent one, or is this just a change that makes it so that in cat form you don't get that base 30% anymore, and they actually nerfed it to 15%. So some questions there, maybe on the next row, kind of with this talent here, it may explain more. Skull Bash, very important for Guardian and Feral, so it makes sense to get it. Thick Hide, reducing all damage by 3 and 6%, so this is a 2-point talent row there. Alright, and then right here, this is a choice node in this middle one right here. So you have to grab Soothe in order to come up and get this, but you can either get Wild Charge on the left or Tiger Dash on the right. Both of that makes a lot of sense to me. I still think Wild Charge is probably going to be the premier choice if Tiger Dash is the other option. So mobility choice node, I think that makes sense. Cenarian Ward, of course, a very popular talent. Actually, no, this has the logo of Cenarian Ward, but it is a increased healing and healing taken, reach 6%. So again, Guardian Druids have some value there. Resto Druids also have some value there. Cyclone, we know Cyclone does what Cyclone does. And then this is Astral Influence. If you are Feral and Guardian, it gives you range on all of your abilities. If you are Restoration... Okay, so this gives range. And for Guardian and Feral, it's 1 to 3 yards. And then for Resto and Balance, it's 5 yards. So it looks like you have to go pretty far out of your way to come get this as a Feral Druid. Like, you basically are having to grab Balance, like old Balance Affinity talents, or I guess the current Balance Affinity talent, in order to invest in getting the extra range. So yeah, you do have to make a choice into doing that. Do we do that early or do we do that late? I'm sure we have to know how many points you're getting when you're getting them in order to kind of make that specification, but an interesting choice to put it over here. Obviously it'll be pretty much a default for Balance and Resto Druids because it's very easy for them to get, particularly Balance Druids, but Guardian and Feral are going to have to do some investment into something that may not be all that useful in order to get it. So I'm wondering if they're trying to kind of nerf Feral PvP by doing this, because you're not getting as much on Feline Swiftness in terms of speed, and you're losing the range that you normally get with Balance Affinity. So it's a really interesting choice that they're making here. That's kind of my perception for Feral. For Guardian, Balance Affinity never really mattered, so it doesn't really make that big of a deal anyways. And then for the caster specs, so to speak, it's fairly easy accessible, which I think makes sense. Alright, moving to the 6th row, Tireless Pursuit. For 2 seconds after leaving cat form or travel form, you retain up to 40% movement speed. This is a conduit that is being made baseline into the talent system. I think that's fine. It was a conduit that's not used heavily by a lot of min-max players, just because unfinessed conduits, there's some other better options. But, you know, being able to get this 40% movement speed, like if you leave cat form because you are needing to throw a heal or something like that while on the move, you get the ability to do that. Same with travel form. When you're leaving travel form for whatever reason, you know, you're going to be able to get that extra movement speed. So very good. Soothe, no surprise, soothe the target, dispelling rage effects. It's one of Druid's best utilities, one of the only ones that Feral and Guardian bring, by the way. Sunfire, no surprise, easily accessible by both Resto and Balance Druids, who both use this spell heavily. And then Typhoon, again, very easily accessible by Balance Druids, very difficult to access for Feral and Guardian. So again, some interesting choice here has to be made, because how heavily do you want to invest down this balance side of the Druid tree in order to, you know, maximize your utility? You know, kind of really be that melee damage, but have some caster hybrid type ability. Really interesting that they put that there. Alright, on the 7th row, right here, Primal Fury. When you critically strike with an attack that generates a combo point, you gain an additional combo point. So this is a passive that's in the tree right now. It's a leveling perk, so this is right straight down the Feral side of the tree. No surprise. Ursock's Endurance. This is a name not finalized. When you use Bark Skin or Survival Instincts, you absorb a small amount of damage over 8 seconds. Ooh, that's really interesting for Guardian Druid. Seeing a lot of things that are really nice defensively for Guardian Druid. I'm hoping that on this side of the tree, when we look at Guardian there, that there's a lot of more offensive capability into it, because one of the things that's making Guardian kind of difficult to handle right now, or it's not as popular, is that, sorry, I keep looking out the window because there's a bird distracting me. But one of the things that makes Guardian not as popular right now is the fact that it doesn't do a ton of damage, and it leans very heavily into the Incarnation window, which means that beyond being in, you know, outside of the Incarn window, you're very, very weak overall. All right, improve Sunfire, which will be right here. Or Wild Growth, again, no surprise. Stampeding Roar in the middle, again, no surprise. That's the same thing that they do now. Improve Sunfire now applies this damage over time to enemies within 8 yards, so you have to actually spec into the spread mechanic of Sunfire that is currently baseline within the spell. Interesting choice. For leveling purposes, I think that's actually okay. Alright, and then row 8, we get a choice node. So right here, you can either get Incapacitating Roar, which is the bear form AoE stun, and then Mighty Bash, which is usable in all shapeshift forms. As you can see, Guardian and Feral very easily can access this. I imagine Feral will be getting Mighty Bash, Guardian will be getting Incapacitating Roar. Though I could see both going both ways. You know, if you need a big AoE stun because there's a lot of mobs that need to be stopped all at once, I could see Incapacitating Roar being very valuable for Feral in that case. So I actually really like this choice here. I think it's really, really interesting, and there's possibilities for both kind of main melee specs to take either of these talents depending on situation. Alright, coming down a little bit more towards the Guardian style, Earthsign Vigor for 4 seconds after shifting into bear form. You get extra health and armor by 15-30%. This is interesting. I think this is going to be very helpful with the issue of bears on pull that don't already have. This is their attempt at a solution for this, rather. For bears that don't have a talent tree, or that don't have Iron Fur already rolling or enough rage to Iron Fur on pull, this is a way to kind of help solve some of that issue without having to use a Survival Instincts or a Bark Skin. Alright, name not finalized, Lakara's Teachings. Basically, this is a haste, a stat buff based on your current form. Kind of interesting way to invest in this is Feral. You come here, grab Improved Bark Skin, grab Earthsign's Vigor, which again doesn't really help you, but you have to do that to come get Stampeding Roar, or you come down this way and grab Iron Fur, Thick Hide, Soothe, and then grab this, and then you can come dip down in here to get more crit with cat form. So again, some interesting choices for Moonkin and Resto Druid. It's an interesting, interesting for Moonkin in particular. They have to invest, it looks like, fairly heavily into Resto stuff in order to be able to grab this to get more mastery. But again, depending on how many talents you can ultimately take out in this tree, that may or may not be as big of an investment as we think. Right, improved Rejuve, kind of like towards the bottom of the Resto portion of the tree. This is a duration increase on Rejuvenation. So again, is this on top of what we already have as a base duration? Or is this going to be are they going to nerf Rejuvenation to only be 9 seconds, and then this talent makes it 12, whereas right now it's just flat 12? Or are they keeping it 12 and then make it 15 seconds? So again, more information that we need, but possibilities are out there. And then the last one on this row is a choice node. You can either get Mass Entanglement or Ursol's Vortex. I think Ursol's is probably going to be the pick majority of the time. Maybe for Spiteful, you grab Mass Entanglement. Depending on the dungeon design or raid design, there might be some niches for everything else, but for this talent, for this choice, I think you're going to see Ursol's picked quite a bit. Row 9, so right here, Well-Honed Instincts. When you fall below 40% health, you cast Regeneration up to once every 90 seconds at rank 2. So this is the current conduit, Endurance Conduit, one of the strongest conduits for druids from an endurance standpoint, deep into the Feral Guardian side of the tree, so fantastic. I think this is great for both of those specs. All right. And then we get Improved Stampeding Roar, reducing the cooldown by 60 seconds. So again, you can invest heavily into the Guardian side if you're a Feral. For Resto, also has to go deep. Moonkin, you have to invest really heavily in order to get this. So again, is it going to be worth it? We'll have to know more once we get an idea of how many talents we're going to have at level 70. Renewal does what Renewal does now. It's just an on-demand 30% heal, and then Innervate deep down into the rest of balance side of the tree. So sorry, Feral Druids, you're not getting Innervate. It looks like it's really, really unfortunate. And then on the final row, we get Fure. When you shift into a form you haven't been in for 20 seconds, ability costs no rage, energy, astral power, or mana for 4 seconds. So this is going to be, I think, somewhat interesting as a raid talent and leveling, of course, and open world content for Guardian Druid, because if you're not having to actively tank while you are a Guardian Druid, you can invest pretty heavily into Feral side of things and go into Feral form, which of course give you that first 4 seconds of no energy cost. For Feral, I don't see it being all that useful because, unless you need it for, hey, we're going to take a big hit, I'm going to shift into bear form and Iron Fur. You know, normally you need 40 rage for that. You only get 25 for shifting into the form. Now you can do that Iron Fur and get you just a little bit of extra armor to take a big hit. So there is some, I think it's a more niche defensive, potentially offensive use. This doesn't excite me a ton. I was hoping for something like Leader of the Pack, because I think that would be really cool and a really nice piece of utility for Feral and Guardian Druids both. But you know, maybe we see it in the specialist trees. Heart of the Wild does what it does now, empowers your non-spec spells for 45 seconds. And then Nature's Vigil. For 20 seconds, all single target healing and damage spells and abilities also heal a nearby friendly target based on the amount done. Huh. This is an interesting cooldown. So it does really good spread damage. Like, this is a way for Resto Druid. I'm thinking from Resto Druid perspective first, because I'm a Resto Druid. You know, kind of one trick, I guess, on my Druid. Not really a one trick, I play a lot of Feral too, but as a Resto main, I think that I could pop this and then like spam Wrath or spam, you know, and then hit Moonfire and stuff like that. And, you know, you get that extra healing off. So this is a way to do passive damage and healing, similar. It's like a 1.5 minute cooldown. That's 20 seconds long. That's basically a form of atonement for Resto Druid. So I love this, and it gives Resto Druid's ability to passively heal while doing damage, which is what makes somewhat Holy Priest with Boon, but makes Shaman, Paladin, and Disc Priests, like, has made them popular basically forever. Something like 3 years worth of grade tiers where those specs just dominated because they could do damage and do enough healing to survive encounters. So I really like this for Resto Druid. For Balanced Druid, it gives them some really interesting utility. You can make the choice to go here if you need to do some off healing, like for example if there's an affix somewhat similar to like Prideful. A lot of the time Moonkins were the ones popping Heart of the Wild with Restoration Affinity, and we're healing this. This gives the Resto Druid to have that 20 seconds where 40% of their damage being done is going to heal nearby targets. So I think this is a really interesting button for both caster specs. Obviously very impactful for Resto, may not be as impactful for Balanced Druid. Balanced Druid, I'm sure already, the theory crafters for them are already looking at this and saying, you know, looking at the possibilities for how useful that is or not going to be. So Druid talents, I think for the most part, make a lot of sense. There's one or two talents I'm not sure are placed in the right place. Typhoon, I think, should be a little bit more universal, because it's just universally good for all specs, but Typhoon started out as a Balanced Druid spell only, so it does make sense to kind of go back to that original fantasy of Typhoon being very accessible for Balance, somewhat accessible for Resto, and difficult to access for Guardian and Feral. Alright, so let's look at the Balanced Druid specific trees. So we're looking on this side now. We've got our Moonkin in the background there, so shout outs to the Moonkin community. You know, for all the hate that they get for being endlessly complaining and stuff like that. I've never really discussed my history. I might make a video on it one time, but I might have been the one to help sow the seed for what the Moonkin community has become today. Anyways, let's look at their first row talent, Eclipse. No surprise. This is kind of a similar version to Eclipse that we have right now. In terms of how to activate Eclipse, you know, you cast 2 Starfires or casting 2 Wraths. It's gonna occur in alternation, so very similar to what we have now in Shadowlands. My understanding is this version of Eclipse has been very popular with the Balanced Druid community. A lot of them like it. It's very controlled. You can make the choice when to enter Eclipse. So if you know that like a heavy movement period's coming up and you know, have 2 Starfires that you need to cast, you know, you can cast 1, maybe not get the second before you move, or if you get the second, you're going to have to move immediately after, so you can kind of control when you proc your Eclipse. You make your movement, proc your Eclipse, and then be able to maximize the Eclipse window. So very much in the player's control. Good players get rewarded for really thinking about how to maximize their Eclipse. So I was a fan of the empowerment system from BFA personally, but as a Balanced Druid, you know, former Balanced Druid main way back in the day when Eclipse was just being born, you know, I'm gonna leave that in the hands of more experienced full-time Moonkin players, and from my understanding, they seem to love this. So the empowerments are just I think similar to what they have now, reduction in cast times, damage increase on Wrath, crit strike on Starfire. Very good. So balanced row 2, I imagine you'll end up getting both of these. Improved Eclipse, an extra 15, it jumps it, almost doubles the cast time reduction from 8 to 15%. I think that's pretty good. Anytime you can cast more spells, the better. And then improved Moonfire, Sunfire. No shock that that's happening given the duration increase. Same question that I have for the Rejuvenation one. Are they going to nerf the duration to compensate for these talents? Or are they going to allow these spells to last longer based off the current duration? Like, if I recall, please don't hold me to this, I'm not a Druid main, but I think Moonfire is 15 seconds and Sunfire is 12. So is this going to make it 18 and 21, or are they going to nerf those so that when you get the 6 seconds, you're back to the current durations? Again, that's questions that we have to ask. Balance row 3, Force of Nature, trees. Everyone knows what trees does if you've been in the community. Let's see, Nature's Balance. So this is a current 15 row talent that is being moved down into the Moonkin tree. I think this is good. Nature's Balance has always been one of my favorite talents in the tree itself. So the fact that it's kind of being baselined into a very accessible portion of the tree, especially goes into an improved Moonkin form, it looks like down here. I think this is pretty cool. And then Wrath of a Loon, or Warrior of a Loon rather, your next 3 Starfires are instant cast and generate 40 increased % actual power. This has a square around it, so this tells me that this is an active ability. So I don't know if this is a PvP talent or anything like that right now. If you're a balanced Druid main, please let me know in the comments. This seems pretty good. Gives you ability to cast a big nuke on the move. So anytime you can have that, that's always good. So you're not just spamming your dots or anything like that. So I think this is good. Balance row 4, Starfall. No surprise. Starfall does what Starfall does now. Improved Moonkin form. While in Moonkin form, single target attacks against you have the 15% to make your next Starfire instant. I see this being very valuable in PvP and leveling. I don't see it being a thing that you would invest a point into at endgame for PvE content, because ideally you're not getting hit all that often. But again, balanced druids that are much smarter than me may think of a lot of situations where this talent would be useful, though I think we're going to need a lot more information from dungeon and raid design. Celestial Alignment, big cooldown, no surprise. 5 row, let's see, Star's Verge further empowers the damage bonus of any active Eclipse, which is kind of what it does now. Solar Beam, their big interrupt, no surprise that it's in the balanced druid tree itself. Shooting Stars, I believe this is a current talent. Moonfire and Sunfire damage over time has a chance to call down a falling star, dealing astral damage and generating 2 astral power. Great. I think Shooting Stars is a cool talent now. I'm glad to see that it's being carried over. And again, looks like it's going to be pretty easily accessible, so great. Alright, row 7, Stellar Drift. Starfire allows you to cast while moving while it's active, but now has a 12-second cooldown. This is a current talent that was very popular early on for Moonkins, particularly in dungeons like Sanguine Depths. I know I see it used a ton. So the fact that this is sticking around, I think is a good thing. Stellar Inspiration here in the middle. Oh no, I'm sorry, I was looking at row 7. This is row 6. So this is improved Starfall. So casting Starfall increases the duration of active Moonfires and Sunfires by 2 and 4%. Oh! So this makes it kind of like Feral Druid with the Sabertooth talent, which increases your rip duration. This is going to increase your dot duration, so you don't have to recast them as often. That's very interesting. I like that. Here in the middle, Power of Goldrin. Star Surge has a chance to summon the Spirit of Goldrin, which immediately deals arcane damage to the target. 2 talents. I'm assuming the damage that it does is cool. This is new, at least to me. Again, if this is like from an artifact thing or an old talent from like WoD or Mist or something like that, please tell me. But that seems cool. And then Star-Lord, traditional talent, giving you more haste, stacking up to 3 times. Very, very, at times a very, very powerful talent, but at other times maybe not so much. But kind of looking at these first 6 rows, it looks like you're going to end up taking most of these in order to spread down into some of these other options that I think are going to be really good down at the bottom of the tree. So my guess is that you're going to have pretty much all these talents in the top 6. You're going to get all of them except maybe improved Moonkin form, but again, Moonkin mains will be able to tell me otherwise. So this is cool. Balance row 7, now this is what I was actually talking about. Stellar Drift. We know what Stellar Drift is if you played Moonkin at all. Very good talent. used quite often in Mythic Plus scenarios and even some raid scenarios. I think it's good that it's going to be back. Stellar Inspiration, that's this little circle talent right here. Starfall and Star Surge have a 10, 15, 20% chance to empower Eclipse or extend Moonfire and Sunfire by double the amount. So a little bit of RNG, it sounds like. So interesting. Looks like this is the pathway for a couple more interesting talents, or you can go Stellar Drift, grab this choice node, and then go from there. But this looks like a very popular, at least for Feral, it's a very popular talent. For the rest of Druid it is. I don't know about Moonkin, but we'll see. Stellar Light of the Sun reduces the remaining cooldown by 15 seconds when it interrupts the primary target. So when you use this on the target that you have currently targeted, it takes it from a 60-second to a 45-second cooldown. That's very good. I think that's very useful useful utility. I was reading the next one already. Umbral Intensity. Eclipse damage bonus to Wrath and Starfire starts 30% stronger at 3 talents. Okay. This just makes your Eclipses more powerful by default. Cool. And then Precise Alignment, getting more duration on your Celestial Alignment, which is up here in row 2, 3, 4. Cool. Makes your cooldown better. We like that. Alright, row 8, we get Blessing of a Loon or Blessing of Anshe. Basically, this lets you choose which Eclipse you want to be a little bit longer, and trading which Eclipse is going to be shorter. This is really interesting to me, because I think that there's going to be some really interesting choices depending on the style of fight, or based off stats, since Solar Eclipse or Lunar Eclipse gives Starfall crit chance. So I think this is a really, really cool choice. I love this talent on its surface if I'm interpreting it correctly. So just fantastic stuff. Soul of the Forest, this is the talent I was hinting at earlier. Eclipse increases Wrath's astral power generation by 50% and increases Starfire's area of effect damage by 150%. I see this having value in Mythic Plus in particular. Overall, again, balanced Druid mains, tell me if you use Soul of the Forest now, because I think this is almost exactly what it does now. Tell me if you use it. I know for Feral and Resto Druid, it's a very good talent. I don't know, and it's not great for Guardian because it competes with 2 other talents that are very powerful. But for balanced Druids, is Soul of the Forest actually good? I don't know. Alright, next over, right here we have Fury of the Skies. Moonfire increases your arcane damage to the target. Sunfire okay, so it basically takes your dots and makes your primary nuke stronger. So I'm already seeing some really cool synergies with some other talents, the ones that increase the duration, somewhere up there. And then also making sure your dots then also empower. So if you're in like a Solar Eclipse where you have Wrath doing, and you're going to be just spamming Wrath for 15 seconds, it's definitely going to be worth making sure that Sunfire stays on your target. Maybe you let Moonfire drop off. Like, that makes the rotation potentially a little bit more interesting. So I like this. I think that's a cool idea. GG Liz. And then you here, on this talent right here, you have Twin Moons. So making Moonfire cleave, or Stellar Flare, which is basically a single target nuke. Another dot that you can add, so you can do Moonfire, you would cast Stellar Drift, Moonfire, then Sunfire. So you get your choice of single target in Stellar Flare or AoE in Twin Moons. Great, I love that. Love having that type of choice. And then on the end here, this circle talent Solstice, during the first 6 seconds of every clip, shooting stars fall 200% more often. So you do get shooting stars right here on this talent, I believe. So coming down this path makes sense. So shooting stars, I think, is good for AoE. So yeah, we take that. All right, on the 9th row, the widest row in the tree, we start off with a choice node. Again, both these have names not finalized. So Onus Clear Vision, which I believe is an old Azurite trait. Star Surge has a 20% to make Starfall free. Starfall has a 40% chance to make Star Surge free. So it allows you to rotate your astral power spenders to kind of get the free options out of that. So even if you're sub 40%, 40 astral power, you're able to get these for free bursts. So you get free AoE or free single target just using the one or the other. So like I said, I think this was an Azurite trait in BFA, and it was very popular for a while in that expansion. So cool. And then Time Worn Dreambender, Star Surge and Starfall reduce the cost of Star Surge and Starfall by 10% and increase your damage by 10%, stacking like 2 times. I don't know enough about this interaction and how it actually mechanically functioned, so I'm not going to make any choices on it. For me, if I'm coming into this choice node, I'm probably taking Onus Clear Vision just because we go there. Let's see, Umbral Infusion, which is right here, name not finalized. You get your AP spenders get reduced by 10%. So instead of 40, they go down to 36. Okay, cool. Here in choice node, you get Incarnation or Convoke the Spirits. I love this choice. Again, we know how Celestial Spirit or Convoke the Spirits works. It's not great for AoE, very good for single target. Incarnation feels like it might be actually pretty good for AoE and not so much for single target. So, like, apologies there. That was my phone. I'll cut this out. So, is this an AoE single target choice? Moonkin mains tell me. But I like this option here, potentially. Okay. And then we get Circle of Life and Death, so a current legendary coming back in. Fantastic. Circle of Life and Death has always been popular amongst pretty much all druids. And then our final choice node on this row 9 is Celestial Alignment. Now blast all targets between you and the selected area for astral damage and applies Moonfire and Sunfire to them. Alright. Or you get Primordial Volcanic Pulsar, which is a legendary now. Interesting. Again, Moonkin mains, tell me what you think. Now on the final row, we get a choice between New Moon and Fury Balloon. Cool, I like that choice. Improved Incarnate Convoke, so making it, if you shift out of the Incarnation or cancel Convoke the Spirits, or if you shift out of Incarnation, you get a portion of its cooldown refunded. Convoke, this gives you the Celestial Spirits, the second half of Celestial Spirits legendary, where you get increased chance to use the full moon in this case. Cool. And then here we get Adaptive Swarm or Balance of All Things. I think we know pretty much what Moonkins are going to choose. And then Orbit Breaker, every 30th shooting star calls down a full moon. So my thoughts on the Balanced Druid video, and I'm so sorry this video is going to be really long because I'm reading all of this. I'll probably speed it up for the other specs, knowing that. My overall thought on the Balanced Druid tree is this is actually really cool. I think this is going to be a fantastic thing overall. I love the idea of this tree. Again, mains, tell me what we got. So what I'm going to do, actually, because this is a really long video already, we're at 37.5 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and cut this off here. So we'll make this the Druid class talents and Balanced Druid talents. And then I'm just going to spam videos for the rest of the talent trees. So stick around, be on the lookout for Feral is going to be coming up next. So that's next here on the Wowhead post. So until the next video, I hope you're all staying safe. Hope you all have fun gaming, and see you next time.